Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Story? Tonight we are sitting down with our favorite fire chief, Jay Everett, and we are going to hear a little bit more about Jay and where he's come from, and not too far, I think. Right?
No, all in New England.
Yeah, so welcome to
Thank you.
our show. We are so glad you're here. Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Winchester, Mass. And my parents had the good sense to move us to Kennebunk when I was 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I actually live in the house that my parents bought in 1973.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And I've raised my kids there. Our oldest are almost 30, and our youngest will be 23 this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'd love to sell it. I'd love to sell it to one of them if the
Yeah.
opportunity exists.
And it might. That's probably the only way they're going to get a break.
It could be. It could be. Yeah.
These days, oh boy.
Yeah.
So you went to Kennebunk schools.
Yep.
Graduated from the high school.
Yeah.
Did you go to fire school?
I did. I went to it's Southern Maine Community College now. At the time, it was SMVTI,
Yeah.
and got my associate's degree in fire science.
Yeah.
And to have it to do all over again, I should have got a bachelor's, because everything now in the fire service, to be a chief, most places you have to have that. And not that it's limited me at all. And not that this hasn't been a great job for the 5 years I've been here. It has been. Now that I've done it, it's the only place I'm ever going to be a fire chief. I'm not. This isn't a stepping stone to somewhere else. I'm here for however much longer.
Yeah.
And
So are you all the time, 24/7? How does it work for you to be fire chief here in Kennebunkport?
That's one of the drawbacks to it. It is 24/7, because it doesn't matter if I'm out of town on vacation or up at camp. I'm still the fire chief, and I'm still responsible for what goes on with the department and the calls. But we have a great bunch of people in the fire department, and they all come from home or their jobs to help the citizens of this town out, which is great. And that in this day and age, that we still have a department that's comprised 98% of volunteers. They get paid when they come to calls and when they come to trainings and things like that, but they still have the choice on whether to go to the call or not.
And you don't.
I don't. I do to an extent, but at the same time, the town graciously lets me take the car home, the pickup truck. And so whenever that's in my driveway, if a call comes in, I'm going, or I don't bring it home if I can't. Things like that. But I make quite a few, the majority of the calls, put it that way. But there still is, even when I'm out of town, there's still a great group of officers and firefighters to be able to cover anything that does happen.
Yeah. Now you're going through some kind of big changes coming up, right, at the fire department. Looking into more people, getting people trained.
We're always looking to the future, and so in the current budget, not the current budget we're in, but the budget we're going to vote on in June. There is money to start the process of making the North Street station able to have per diem employees should we get to that need. It's definitely on the horizon, but for this up and coming budget, I didn't put it in there yet. Who knows what next January, February will bring, but Lori, the town manager, always talks about having the crystal ball, and I wish there was one to look into and say, oh, yep, on June 10th, 2027, we're going to need per diem employees or whatever.
Same here, Jay. We have a huge volunteer pool here at the library, and that's how we stay open. And so it's that same sort of thing, when you're talking about manpower, it's.
And I truly want to keep the Kennebunkport Fire Department as as long as we possibly can, the community-based resource, like the library, that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who really love doing what they do. I
Yep.
see it whenever we have to call you for, can you come pump us out?
Yeah, and it's, you know, and that's the good part about it is
Yeah.
is there, you know, I've really been associated with, I've been in the fire service for almost 41 years.
Yeah.
Most of that in Kennebunk. I spent 30 years in the Portland Fire Department. When I retired 4 years ago, I was a deputy chief, so I ran a shift of 55 people up there.
Yeah.
And, you know, in four or 5 days, Portland would do the number of calls that Kennebunkport does in an entire year.
Yeah, I know.
So it was a little bit of a
Yeah.
getting used to.
Yeah.
But I've never been around a group of people that want to help their neighbor more than being involved with Kennebunk and the Kennebunkport Fire Department now. That you know, the people come out and do what they can when they can.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
yeah.
And I think it's just amazing the way you all roll, because it's, you know, you need people to stop the traffic, or
Yep.
when you're thinking about it, you have sort of this collective mind of getting the
Yeah.
job done, which is wonderful.
There's never been anyone that has, in the 5 years I've been here anyway, that's come to the door saying, "Hey, what do I need to do to help you guys, to volunteer? What?"
Yeah.
And I explain what the training is and things
Yeah.
like that. But there's always room for anybody,
Yeah.
no matter what their age. Some things are limited to abilities,
Yeah.
but you know, it's a young person's job, and so I am right at the average age of 55 that the fire department is in this town.
Yeah.
And you know, I really need to get the 20-somethings involved and get them trained. And we've been fortunate over the last 4 or 5 years. I've
Yeah.
actually picked up 5 people that are under 25,
Yeah.
and they've all either are planning to go to. You have to be an interior firefighter. You have to have a certain level of training, and the best way to get that, the easiest way to get that, is go to a firefighter 1 and 2 academy, which the York County Chiefs do annually. It starts in January and it will be wrapping up in June. And they get all their certifications they need to do that job. And I've been lucky over the past 5 or 6 years to have picked up 4 or 5 people that are either have taken the class or are planning on taking the class next year. And it's a good thing. It's what's going to keep us the
Right.
community-based resource
Right.
we are.
Right. So when you're not doing what you're doing, what do you like to do for fun?
Talk about what I do. I really, it's a little bit of a funny story in a sense, I guess. I always thought I'd do, work 35 years at least in Portland, and this opportunity came up, so I looked into it and was fortunate enough to get the job. I did both jobs for a year, and as much as I love being in a firehouse, that was way too much. So
Yeah.
I really thought, I'm like, all right, you're 50-something years old. You need to think about the future, and this job is it.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, my wife likes having me home at night. No nights, holidays, and weekends anymore. Things like that. But when I'm not in the firehouse, I mean, the best job I've ever had has been becoming a dad, and it was a little tough when my kids got older and went to college. I went through a little phase of, okay, now what?
Yeah.
I didn't feel needed. I didn't feel like it was kind of done. Because
They didn't need you anymore.
the best thing the Portland Fire Department did for the Everett family is allowed me to stay home on my days off and raise our kids.
Okay.
And not pay. I was working when my kids first started. Starting at kids, I was working 2 other jobs, and all that money was going to put them, have somebody else watch them. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, dopey, why don't you stay home and actually raise your kids?
Yeah.
It's a wash financially, and
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get tired of hearing life lessons from their dad because that's what their dad is all about.
Yeah. What does your wife, does she work?
She's allowed me to play fireman for the 40 plus years. Well, we've been together for 34, 35. And she's a, they don't call her a chief operating officer, but that's what she does for an architecture and engineering firm. She's an engineer by trade.
Yep. Yep.
And has done very well. And so, like I said, she's allowed me to play
Where did
fireman.
you guys meet?
So I say this as a joke. I want it to be the joke that it's supposed to be. I was lazy and my wife settled. So living in the house that we own, when my wife Kate graduated from college, before that her sister and husband had bought the house next door. And the summer after Kate graduated from college, I was a young, pliable 19 years old. And we met because she lived with at her sister's house for the summer, and that was it.
That's not bad.
No, we've been best friends ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's great, and I hope my kids find the same exact thing, and
Yeah, that's all you wish for, right?
yep, and be happy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you said something about a camp. Do you have a camp somewhere?
Yes.
You go to camp?
Up in beautiful downtown Rome, Maine.
Where is that?
Don't blink or you're going to miss it. It's only 90 minutes from here.
Really?
Yep, it's Great Pond. It's on the northern end of Great Pond, which if you go up Route 27 out of Augusta towards Lake Farmington, you'll go through Belgrade.
Okay.
Rome is the next town,
Okay.
and it's right there, and I can sit on the dock and read and
Yeah, that's
just
awesome.
hang out there. My wife and I go for long walks and all that good stuff.
Now, do you bring a radio with you? Are you that, you know how some people, they can't leave their job? Like I notice when I see folks on a vacation, they've got their phone still attached to them.
Yeah. Well, last September, my wife and I went on an Alaskan cruise because her brother was going to be married in Victoria. Is that Victoria Island?
Yeah.
And that was the last stop of the cruise.
Yeah.
I get all my any call that happens in the port goes to my phone too.
Okay.
So we're on a bus going from the ship to I forget what town we were in, but we were going to downtown, and it beeps that we have a call, and I look at it, and it says it's a structure fire at the Nonantum.
Oh.
And I'm on a bus in Alaska. Fortunately, the call turned out to be minor,
Okay.
but it happens, and there used to be an app that I would use that somebody, and I don't know who, but would rebroadcast the fire departments in the area.
Yeah.
So I could just, when a call would come through my phone, I could go to that app, and it was about a 20-second delay, but I could hear all the radio traffic.
Yeah.
And if somebody got to a scene and said, there's a building fire here, and if I'm at camp, I'd start my coming home just to, that's my job. But it's tough, and it's kind of not grating, it kind of a grind on you though, because the job is 24/7, where other jobs, you shut off the light to your office on the way out, and you don't turn it on till 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and you don't have to think about it in between.
Right. I got a call at 3:45 on Sunday morning from the alarm company, and the little sensor in the sump pump was not, telling me something was wrong. And one of our board members came over, sort of the same situation that happened when you were here at, I think, a little bit before Christmas time. And he said, I don't hear the pump. But we could tell that the water, water was, so I'm in Saco on the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I said, hit the pipe up above. Sure enough, it kicked on. But again, we would have had to call you. But it's, it's those calls that you're not here and,
Yeah.
When I was in Spain a few years ago, I was getting a call every night the alarm was going off. Like, nothing I could do. So
Yeah.
the next person in line has to deal with it, unfortunately.
Right.
Then you feel bad.
Well, and when I was in Alaska, there was actually another call for a reported building fire in town, and both of them, because I couldn't listen to the radio traffic,
Yeah.
I waited a few minutes, and I also still get all the pages that Kennebunk Fire gets.
Yeah.
So I waited a few minutes. I'm like, all right, if Kennebunk, it's been 10 minutes. If Kennebunk hasn't been toned out, it's a nothing. So you can relax.
Yeah.
And, So, but the town manager will tell you I am anti-technology, which I kind of am.
But you know what? That's not a bad thing.
But at the same time, being able to have
Yeah.
that kind of connection.
Yeah.
And they actually had just a couple of years ago, we've owned the camp for, this will be our 6th summer. Just a couple of years ago, they put a tower up that I have AT&T, that AT&T was on. And I went from having to either drive out in my car somewhere or go out into the lake in my boat to get cell service.
And doing this.
Yeah, and then and now they put the tower up, so now at least I know I get everything, and if somebody needs to call me, I can answer. My wife has Verizon, and I go, look, if you try calling my phone and it doesn't work, call this number. It's my wife's phone, and if you need me for whatever.
So that's kind of leads into my next question. What about the equipment? Like you've probably, in the time that you've been a firefighter, you've seen equipment changes.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of really good things have come probably from some bad experiences, right? I think sometimes that's the way stuff evolves.
Yeah, I mean everything. Yeah, happens that way. You've had horrific fires in Boston and other places back in the early 1900s that made laws change to. For better safety and
respirators.
And things, and things have happened. Yeah, when I first started in 1982 in Kennebunk, the air packs weren't mounted in the seats in the truck. They were in cases up in, it's called the well, but up above the pump panel. They were in boxes. So took you a little time to get them out, get them on, and do your thing. And then as things have evolved, now we had open cab trucks that people had fallen off of. Riding on the back of the trucks for a long time now has been a no-no, but everybody did it, and people would fall. And
Right.
So there's been a lot of that. Everything's 4-door cabs now. You have airbags in fire trucks that like your personal cars that you never had. Better rollover protection, things like that. But if we drive the trucks appropriately, we shouldn't need the rollover protection.
Now, ever since I was a kid and I watched One Adam 12, One Adam 12, I have watched every fire show ever on TV. Do you ever watch any of that stuff and shake your head?
Again? Oh yeah. I mean, I remember going and seeing the movie Backdraft. That was probably the last movie that really, I mean, there's been some series on TV, Chicago Fire recently, and some others, and it's good, but you have to remember too, you can if it was real, you wouldn't see the actors, so you wouldn't know who was talking.
Right.
The Chicago Fire, I think it was, they specially made the masks to be longer on the person's face, because our regulator is right up like this. So now they put it down like this, so you could see who the actor was. But in the smoke, you can't see that. But then the other thing for me that Backdraft did was my musical idol David Crosby was in one of the very first scenes. Pointing that it was all his stuff up there that was burning. And
I'll have to go back and look at that. I loved that movie. I thought that was a great movie.
And it was really good for the fire service because it got people thinking. But again, it's Hollywood. It's not what happens. 30 years ago, you had all kinds of time, so to speak, to get out of your house if you had a fire, because your house wasn't full of the foams and the carpets and the things that are petroleum-based products in houses now. So you could have 20, 30 minutes before a structural collapse would happen. Now you have about 6 to 7, depending on how much it is, and because of money,
Yeah.
building materials have changed. So you have lightweight trusses
Yeah.
that go up. Somebody can stick a roof on a house in a day
Yeah.
because of lightweight trusses. But when 1 or 2 fails, they pull on the other ones and more of them fail.
Okay.
They're put together with what are called gusset plates, which are pieces of aluminum that have little spikes in them so they hold,
Yep.
but at 1,400 degrees, aluminum starts to melt
Yeah.
and the trusses fail, and then you have a collapse. And we're a lot of the time still inside.
Oh my gosh.
So there's been good changes. There's been other changes that haven't been good, and then all the petroleum products that are used to make the carpets and the foam in the padding of our furniture and things like that puts off a dense black smoke, so it makes visibility harder. So it's harder for us to maneuver in the house or whatever building to do our searches and help or rescue people if needed.
How much does the equipment weigh when you're fully dressed?
It was a lot heavier when I first started because it was steel bottles or aluminum bottles. They went to aluminum bottles and everybody thought that was great. And now they're carbon fiber wrapped bottles, which are very light. But they're a crazy price. When I have to buy a new one, it's almost $1,000 for one bottle.
Wow.
But the overall weight, you're probably, with your gear, the whole ensemble, the helmet, gloves, boots, air pack, you're probably in the 35-pound range
Okay.
these
Wow.
days.
Wow. Do you go to schools, and when you were just talking about the amount of time you have to get out of a house now, do you go to schools and talk to kids? Like, how would there be a training for people to know how to get out of their house? I mean, I remember learning it, like, I'm older than you. I remember learning stuff back in school, stop, drop, and roll, and find an exit, and, those things that, if you're on the second floor, have a rope or those kinds of things. But is that still happening so that kids know? Because I know it scares them.
We buy and bring a lot of pamphlet type literature for the kids when we do things at schools or any other civic groups. I've gone and talked to different civic groups over my career, and so we talk about it's EDITH, exit drills in the home, and having two ways out of your house, and things like you learned it in school. You had a meeting place because you went wherever the teacher told you to go, and you went there. Well, it's the same at home, because if Mom and Dad go out the back door because that's their closest, and the kids go out the front door, they don't come around to find each other. What are the parents going to think? That our kids are still in there. What are the kids going to think? Our parents are still in there. So having a meeting place like the neighbor's front porch or the flagpole in the yard next door or something like that, to be able to tell us. I mean, we don't take, it sounds bad. It's not that we don't believe people when they say there's no one in the house. We still have to search because the neighbor's kid was over for a sleepover and I forgot, or whatever.
Or the Bugsy, the cat, is...
we do that too, and we have to preach to the kids about not going back in after their cat, dog, their favorite toy, whatever. But these are the things we do, and then we have the literature for them to bring home, in the form of coloring books and stuff like that, and are hoping that the parents go over it with them. And the one thing we talk to them the most about is not playing with, if you find a lighter or matches, give them to an adult, not playing with it. Because remember, every fire starts small.
Right. I have those fake candles at home that flicker, because I was in a fire once when I was a kid, and I think it scared the you-know-what out of me. And it can be pretty powerful when now I'm a little bit of a, I wouldn't say crazed person, but I check the stove. I check
Well, I mean, you'd be surprised because accidents happen. When I was still working in Portland, it wasn't my shift, but there was a call for a reported building fire right up the street from the station. They happened to be cooking dinner and didn't shut it off.
Yeah, yeah.
And they ended up putting a fire out in the station too. So it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's, you can Google things and find that it's happened all over the place. Kennebunk had a fire station burn in 1980.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was not properly cared for rags after using linseed oil.
Yep, yep.
So,
Oh, my. So, well, we hope that everything works out with your plans for the future. And, you know, if there's anything that you want to do, come to the library, give talks.
I'm happy to.
We're right here.
If you have a group that would want me to, or want the
Okay.
fire department to, whether it would be, you know, showing the type of technology that we do have,
Yep.
like thermal imagers,
Yeah.
Things like that, how they work.
Yep. I think that
Or
would
if
be-
it's where's the best spot to put my smoke detector?
Right,
Or
right.
things like that. I am very happy, and it's one of the things I love about this job is I have the time to do that.
Okay.
I put 2 smoke detectors up in a house today that they needed the assistance,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we got them the detectors and
Yeah.
and put them up, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
I do that, and that makes me feel good about the job because, you know,
It's almost like preventative care.
it is a little bit, but I want to be that fire chief
Yeah.
that, you know, is approachable, willing to help,
Yep.
you know, and yeah, I'd love to come to any group that
Yeah,
would want to.
well, we, as you know, we do a lot of programs with the public health department. So
Yep.
maybe we can get something scheduled
Sure.
for you to come in and kind of show some of the things that we should know about.
Yep.
Because I think we don't think about it until we have to think about it, and sometimes
Right.
it's too late.
Well, and the house I was at today has some structural issues
Yeah.
that, you know, and one of them being one of the doors
Yeah,
that could be used as a second way out
yeah,
doesn't work well and is tough
Yeah.
to open.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
if that's your only way out, if that door is your only way out, and you can't get there because it's near the kitchen and that's where the fire started, let's say, there's, you know, it's just things like that because people don't think of it, you know,
Yeah.
and they don't think of how fast the fire moves. The
Yeah.
fire will double in size, basically with the fuel of a normal room. It will double in size about every 15 to 30 seconds.
wow.
And we have to drive to the fire station, get the trucks, and then drive to the emergency. So, you know, the fire can have a big head start on us.
Yes, yes. An extinguisher. What would be the life expectancy? Like I bought an extinguisher for my house probably many, many years ago. Does it still work?
If it has a gauge on it, and
Okay.
if it's the problem with when you buy them at home and they just sit there,
Yeah.
is what's in it if it's an ABC extinguisher. And an ABC extinguisher means it can be used on wood and paper, electrical stuff, electrical equipment, and also flammable liquids.
Okay.
It's what is in it's what you have here in the library. It's what every business has.
Yeah.
Fire stations have them because it's the easiest thing to do. But
Yeah.
if it was just sitting there for 10 years, and every time everyone looked at it, the pressure gauge was in the green, that's good, except no one really knows sometimes what
Right.
happens to the powder.
Right.
It's a very fine powder that's inside it.
Yeah, yeah,
And will it come out, or is it
Yeah.
caked, or
Yeah.
so the best thing to do is it's a little more expensive way to do it, but you could buy an extinguisher through somebody that maintains them, and they can come in every year and
Yeah.
look at it and do what it needs to have done to it, put a new tag on it, and there's a better chance that
Yeah.
down the road it will work.
yeah. Because I know there's always the reminder, you know, when you do the clock, change
Yep.
the batteries in your.
Yep.
But they don't really talk about those fire
Right.
extinguishers. And I know for me, mine's got a lot of dust on it.
Yeah.
And that's knock on wood, because I
Right.
haven't had to use it, but you know, if
Yep.
it does happen.
No, and the best, as long as you always want to have your extinguishers towards your exits, so that you're going to get the extinguisher. The fire is not between you and the exit.
Oh, okay.
You can go back. You can go get your extinguisher, come back, and go. Yeah, no. Or if you tried it and it didn't work because it's got plenty of dust on it and it's old, then you can leave. And the fire hasn't cut you off from your exit.
Okay.
So when you look at even public buildings and things like that,
Yeah.
the extinguishers are by the doors.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good advice.
So
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
No problem.
Thanks for all you do, Chief Everett.
thank you.
Keep up the good work. Hopefully
I'll try.
you won't have too many calls.
Well, for Kennebunkport, it's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
If we were busier, we could actually bring our department to another level of being better.
Yeah.
Some of it is we don't have enough calls. We're not
Yeah.
operating the equipment
Right.
enough and
Right.
things like that. But at the same time,
That's
not a bad thing.
That's exactly right. That's
Yep.
exactly right. So, well, enjoy the summer. Hopefully it won't be a bad one
No, it'll
for
be
all of
fine.
us. So
I don't mind camp in the rain.
thanks a lot.
All right.
And thanks to our producer, Mike Kelly, for being here today. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of What's Your Story. And hopefully we will see you back here another time.